Hi, I'm George Durunda, and this primetime program is 100% brand new, top-of-the-line television programming.
It'll be over in a half hour.
Hi, I'm George Durunda, and welcome to Primetime. And let me tell you, folks, you couldn't have tuned in on a better night because we're going to have a tour of the Mystic Marine Life Aquarium.
Primetime tire expert Mike Chuddy.
Yes, spit it out, Mark, spit it out. And the entertainers.
And to start off the show, it's a new band on Primetime.
Yes, that's right, Mark. It's center stage,
Yep.
And they're going to be performing Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy.
He was a famous trumpet man from hot Chicago way. He had a good style that no one else could play. He was a trumpet man at his craft. But then his stomach came up and he was gone to the draft. He's in the army now, a blowing heavily. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy company B. They made him blow a bugle for his Uncle Sam. It really brought him down because he could not jam. The captain seemed to understand. He does the next thing he can, put on a captain of band. And now the company jumps when he was reveling. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy company B. A root, a toot, a tootly-attitude, he blows eight to the bar. He boogie with the piano, no, and that's the basic guitar playing with you. And the company jumps when he was reveling. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy company B. He was some boogie woogie bugle boy company B. 20 plays boogie woogie bugle, he was busy as a biz to be. And when he played, he made the company jump eight to the bar. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy company B. And now doodly-yada, doo-doo, he goes six to the bar. He can't go a note if the bass and guitar is in with him. And the company jumps when he was reveling. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy company B. He puts him to sleep a boogie every night and wakes him up the same way in the early bright. They clap their hands and stamp their feet, 'cause they know how he blows when someone gives him a beat. Whoa, whoa, he breaks him up when he plays reveille. The boogie woogie bugle boy company B. A root, a toot, a toot, he's loud, eight to the bar. Can't go nervous, the basic guitar isn't blowing down. And the company jumps when he was reveille. He's the boogie woogie bugle boy company B.
Yes, that was center stage and Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy. And when we return, we're going to be looking at fish at the Mystic
No,
Marine
it's
Life
fishes,
Aquarium.
George.
It's fish.
No, it's fishes.
It's fish.
It's fishes.
Well, look, we're going to go to the Mystic Aquarium. We'll straighten this out later. It's fish, Mark.
It's fishes.
Fish.
We pledged our allegiance to it when we were young. We studied its importance when we were in our teens. We sing its praises at every sporting event. We display it when we celebrate, lower it when we mourn, and honor our heroes with it when they've fallen. It stands for what we are and what we believe in. How we treat it says a lot about us.
My next guest works at an aquarium. Ha! Well, that sounds fishy to me. Let's meet from the Mystic Marine Life Aquarium, Bernadette Bodie. Well, Bernadette, welcome to Primetime.
Oh, thanks. I'm glad you could make it to the aquarium, George.
Well, it's nice of you to have us down here.
Right.
And what an extravagant display of marine life.
Yes, we have over 6,000 specimens here at Mystic Marine Life Aquarium.
Well, I have my favorites, but what do people usually go for? What seems to be the favorite?
It depends. Kids like things different than adults. I think some of the really young kids, they like the fishes. They like the colorful fish. And
Are they
then
fishes or are they fish?
Do you know what it is? It's a tough distinction. If there's one type of fish, okay, one particular species, then it's fish. But if you're talking about a number of different species, then it's fishes.
So here it's fishes.
We have fishes here, but maybe in an individual exhibit, they would be fish in one exhibit if they were all the same type.
I'm glad we cleared that up.
Yes.
But back to what seems to be the favorite?
Well, different things. I think a lot of people enjoyed the penguins, which opened last summer.
Well, that's your newest exhibit.
That's the newest one, yes. People also enjoy the whales and dolphins in the Marine Theater. Other people like watching the seals and sea lions out here on Seal Island. And then there are others that really enjoy the fishes and the sharks. The sharks are some people's utmost
They look
favorite.
pretty nasty in there.
Well, they're really not that bad. Sharks have a really nasty reputation that they don't truly deserve. There are over 350 different kinds of sharks. Of those, only 22 different kinds have ever been known to attack man. So these guys, they're harmless.
Now, what variety of sharks do you have in this tank? What were we looking at here?
Okay, here at Mystic Aquarium in the exhibit that you looked at, we have two species. We have a sand tiger shark, which you tend to find off the coast of North America. They're in the Atlantic Ocean, pretty numerous. Then there's also a nurse shark that you tend to find down a little bit further south than here, and that's a bottom dweller. Many people think that there's a problem with the shark because it's always on the bottom of the water, and some people come running into the office saying, one of your sharks is sick, one of your sharks is sick. But in actuality, it's just a different type of shark that people aren't used to seeing.
Now, you recently opened the Penguin Pavilion. Are there different varieties of penguins?
There sure are. There are about 17 or 18, depending on which scientist you speak to.
17 or 18?
Different kinds of penguins. Most people associate penguins with the icy waters of Antarctica. However, only a couple of those different species of penguins actually live or are restricted to frigid temperatures. The type of penguin that you see here, the African black-footed penguins, are a temperate species. In the wild, they'd be found off the southern tip of Africa, where they experience temperature changes just like you have in this environment. They're very comfortable in the summertime. They have a lot of different adaptations that make them well suited for our climate. If you look at them closely, around the eyes they have pink patches of skin, and that's one mechanism that they have that will let them give off excess heat. Another way that they can get rid of heat is by panting like a dog. So on a real hot day, some people might see them standing on the beach and just exhaling a lot and panting a little bit, and that's just because that's their way of cooling off. Or else you might see them flap their wings a little bit, and that's another mechanism that they have.
And I understand you had a couple of baby sea lions that were born here.
Well, actually, they were fur seals, northern fur seals.
Northern fur seals, not sea lions. Totally different.
Different type of animal. Actually,
Well, that's why you're the expert.
right. With all seals, sea lions, fur seals, and walruses are pinnipeds, which is a Latin word meaning fin-footed. So that's how we group them all together. Now, within that, there are different distinctions. The walruses are one group of animals, and you have your seals, which are separate from the sea lions, and sort of in between the seals and the sea lions, you'd find the fur seals. They all have different things that make them what they are. For instance, if you take a quick look at a seal, you'll notice that it doesn't have anything on the outside of its head as an ear. It just has a pinhole, and that's where they get their sense of hearing from or through. If you look at a California sea lion, on the other hand, you'll see that it has a little flap of skin, just like our ear would be. That's one quick way of telling them apart. They also have other structural mechanisms, such as the makeup of their flippers and their fins that tell them apart.
Now, is it common to have fur seals in an exhibition like you have?
Well, actually, this is one of two places in the country where fur seals have bred successfully in captivity. Here at Mystic Aquarium, when we built Seal Island in the late 70s, one of our goals was to be able to establish an environment where this species would actually breed. And we've been very successful with it. We've had quite a few offspring, especially this year and last year we've had a number.
So this year wasn't the first?
Oh, no. A couple of years after the exhibit opened, so in the early 80s, we started breeding the animals successfully.
Now in the Marine Theater, you have dolphins and whales,
That's correct.
and they seem to perform all these tricks.
Well, actually, what we're trying to...
You can actually teach dolphins and whales
Yes,
to
you
do
can.
things that they don't normally do.
Well, actually, a lot of what you're seeing are things that they do, except we're focusing them on an object, or we're trying to focus them so that they make a point. For instance, when the California sea lion climbs up the steps, what we're doing is we're showing how in the wild that animal would climb up a rocky cliff, for instance.
Now,
So
whales
they're all-
breach themselves.
Whales breach themselves in the wild, or here our dolphins breach. Our beluga whales don't. That's not something that they'd be inclined to do in the wild either. They often do the jumping breaches. That's something that's very common, so we've trained them to do that on command. Also, dolphins can jump high out of the water. They have very good accuracy, and by having them hit a target ball or something like that, that's one way of sharing that information with our visitors, and it means that they'd be able to understand it and hopefully learn something from.
And in addition to these specialty areas, you then have thousands of fishes.
That's right. We sure do. We have 48 indoor exhibits, and in those we have 6,000 specimens of, several hundred different species, different types of animals from all over the world.
And we saw tropical fish. Was it lionfish?
Yes, the lionfish is...
They look pretty
really-
vicious. No.
Actually, they're beautiful animals. They're so elegant looking, except at the end of each of those tentacles is a poison duct, and if you touch those, even if our feeders or if our aquarists that take care of them daily, if they were to touch one of those spines, they'd get a pretty bad sting, and they'd have to go to the hospital and get treated for that.
And we saw some seahorses.
They're remarkable specimens. If you look closely at them, you'll notice that along their back they have a dorsal fin that vibrates so many times per second. That's really quickly moving for such a small animal. They have an interesting way of feeding. What they do is they seek out and they catch little brine shrimp that swim by. They're known as filter feeders. Whatever's in the area, they'd filter up and snatch up.
Is there a technical reason why they're called seahorses?
Probably just the shape of their head. They sort of
just resemble a horse.
Exactly.
Now, you don't just have fur seals, you have a couple of other varieties on Seal Island.
That's right. Seal Island is made up, it's a 2.5-acre outdoor complex that has 3 different habitats. The first exhibit that visitors see is the New England Coastline exhibit. And in there you can see harbor seals and gray seals. This week, I'm not sure how much longer it's going to be there for, but we have a stranded harp seal. It's a very unusual animal. It's stranded on a beach in Rhode Island, a little over a year ago as a young pup. And right now we're waiting for authorization from the federal government to ship it overseas up to Nova Scotia, where there's a facility that's holding a colony of this species. This animal wouldn't be a good candidate for return to the wild because it was born with some congenital birth defects. It doesn't have any eyes, so it wouldn't do well on its own. It really needs people to take care of it. The second exhibit is the Pribilof Island exhibit, where you've got to look at the northern fur seals. And in there we have some new seal pups, some fur seal pups that were born, within the last month and a half, 2 months. That's a fun exhibit to watch.
That was, and?
Then the final exhibit is the California Coast exhibit. And there you'll see the California sea lions, and we also have a northern elephant seal that lives in that exhibit. He's hiding these days. He's just about finished with his annual molt, which is when he sheds his entire skin.
His entire, kind of like a snake.
Yes, exactly. However, Hank is over 2,500 pounds. He is one of the largest animals you'll see here at the aquarium, if you get to see him. He tends to hide a lot.
He was hiding when we went by.
He was. He has an interesting story, though. He had stranded as a pup in California. He was stranded on a beach out there, and he couldn't be returned to the wild, or they didn't feel it was in his best interest to, so they found a home for him here at the aquarium.
And I understand we were here on a pretty important day.
Yes, on Monday morning this week we received word that there was an Atlantic bottlenose dolphin that had stranded on a beach in New Jersey. Now, this dolphin is the same species that we have here in our Marine Theater, so our staff has had a lot of experience taking care of them, and they know a lot about this type of animal. But we're members of the Northeast Regional Stranding Network, and as such we're responsible to take care of any stranded marine mammals that strand on the Connecticut and Rhode Island coastline. Now, this animal animal that's stranded in New Jersey, down there they didn't have any place to hold the animal. So National Marine Fisheries Service contacted us and asked if we had a pool that would be available to take this guy in, and we did.
You came to the rescue.
Yes, Mystic Aquarium is dedicated to education and research, and part of that is studying stranded marine mammals and trying to learn as much about different forms of marine life.
Why do they strand themselves?
There are a number of different reasons why. This was an individual, this animal is obviously sick, but there are other instances where there are mass strandings, where you have anywhere from a dozen to hundreds of animals that strand themselves simultaneously along a stretch of beach. Those are the real mysteries. We don't know why. Sometimes some scientists suggest that maybe one animal is sick and he's sort of the leader and leads the rest up on the beach. Other people think, well, maybe the animals get misguided due to magnetic waves in the water, or they follow prey ashore. There are a lot of different things, and people just really don't know the answer yet. We hope to study that in the future.
And if any of our viewers are interested in having any information sent to them, who can they call?
Well, if they're looking to get visitor information, maybe a brochure or something like that, if they're thinking about planning a visit, they can just write to visitor information at Mystic Marine Life Aquarium, and our address is 55 Coogan Boulevard, Mystic, Connecticut 06355. If they have information about different subjects, or if they have questions about marine life that they're dying to have answered, they might want to just drop a line to the aquarium's education department, which is at the same address.
Well, Bernadette, this certainly has been a pleasure,
Oh,
and
it's
thanks
my
for
pleasure.
having us down here.
Glad you could make it.
And I hope to do it again soon sometime.
Wonderful, wonderful.
And you stay with us, because we'll be back with more Prime Time right after this.
Charles Bronson isn't happy.
Sure takes guts to vandalize parks or beat up on trees. But that's what some jerks are doing to our public lands. Only the land can't fight back. But we can. We can save our lands, you and me. Let's face it, someone who gets his kicks punching out flowers shouldn't be too much of a match for us.
Write Take Pride in America. Post Office Box 1339, Jessup, Maryland 20794.
My next guest has been with us before here in Prime Time. He is kind of our Prime Time tire expert. He is Mike Chuddy. Well, Mike, welcome back to Prime Time.
Glad to have you back here.
Yeah, and what are we going to tell the folks about this time?
Well, today we're going to talk about proper air pressure in your tires, and we're going to talk about tire rotation. Two things that really make a big difference in how long your tires last.
So that couple of pounds of air makes a big difference.
Oh, it makes a huge difference. Car manufacturers in their little books give you an air pressure that is supposed to be right for your car.
Usually it's lower than the real tire pressure. The tires almost look flat.
Usually it is a lot lower than what you ought to have in the tire. The car manufacturers are interested in you getting a nice smooth ride from their car. You spent big bucks on this car and you want it to ride good, or they want it to ride good. So they generally call for an air pressure in your tire that is a little bit lower than it ought to be to get the best wear. We recommend running the maximum air pressure that the tire will carry if it's within a reasonable amount. Most tires give the best wear at about 30 to 35 pounds of pressure.
So whatever it says on the tire, that's what you should run it at.
That's what I would start it at. It's not a cut and dry thing. You have to go by how your tire is wearing, how it looks sitting with the weight of the car on it, if it's wearing more on the edges, if it's wearing more in the center. But it's a good place to start.
Can having low air pressure in tires really cause some tire problems?
Yes, it can. It can cause some pretty severe problems.
Really?
Well, first of all, is if you run low air pressure in tires, they're going to wear out on the edges. And a tire that's supposed to give you 50 or 60,000 miles is going to give you 20 or 30,000 miles. It'll have plenty of tread in the middle, but the edges will be worn off, and you'll be pretty upset. The second thing that it can do is cause the tire to heat up. The more
friction with the road.
Sure, the more friction on the road, the more heat buildup in a tire. And heat is one of the tire's worst enemies. It causes all kinds of problems, premature wear. It causes a breakdown of the steel belt and the cord body. The third thing that low air pressure will do is give you poor gas mileage. If your car is supposed to get 30 miles to a gallon and you're running low air pressure, you might only be getting 25 or 27 miles to a gallon.
But the ride will be great.
You'll have a spectacular ride if you like a soft, cushy ride. A lot of people on the road now prefer a stiffer ride because the car handles better. There's a lot of performance cars out there on the road. And if you've got a car that's got fat performance tires on it and it's made to handle well, you're not so concerned about how the car is riding, you're concerned about how it's cornering. So those are things that you ought to take into consideration when you're checking the air pressure. And you always want...
When should you check the air pressure?
Well, you check it when the tire is cold. In New England, that's easier said than done because of our big variation in temperatures, 30 degrees from one day to the next. But generally speaking, check it before you get in the car and take off.
So when the tire heats up, it will actually exceed its maximum rating?
Yes, if you're driving your car with an air pressure of 35 pounds per square inch, and that's the maximum air pressure recommended for that tire, when the tire heats up after 10 miles of driving, you may have 37 or 40 pounds in the tire. But that's okay, because the recommended air pressure of 35 is for when the tire is cold.
So don't start checking your tires when they're hot and then letting all this air out of your tires.
No, because you'll be running drastically underinflated tires.
How about tire rotation? Now, I remember in the old days, radials, they used to say just run them front to back and don't cross them, and now they say you can cross them. What's the story here?
A lot of people are confused here, and some tire dealers are still confused about this. When radial tires first came out, most tire companies were saying keep them on the same side of the car. Supposedly the tire belt took a set against the tire cord, and if you got it going in the opposite direction, the tire would break apart. About 5 years ago, the tire companies changed their mind and said you can now crisscross tires. Most tire companies claim it's because they're using a better chemical to bond the steel belt to the polyester cord, and for that reason it doesn't make any difference when you crisscross them. Coincidentally, they came out with this cross-rotation pattern when they started to notice problems with tires wearing on the rear of front-wheel drive cars. The early 80s was a time when a lot of the car manufacturers were getting into front-wheel drive cars and starting to notice some odd wear problems on the back of the car. And it was a little bit of a cupping. They found that the only way they could get rid of it was by getting that tire off the back onto the front, but get it going in the opposite direction. So when you go in to have your tires rotated, hopefully on a regular basis, every 7,000 to 10,000 miles, the tire dealer will take your tires and switch them from one side of the car to the other. As an aside, there's a tire company who will remain nameless that I used to deal with.
I wonder why.
We had sold their tires for a while, and every once in a while we would get a tire back with a problem, a broken belt or a twisted belt, and we'd send it back to the company, and they would say, oh no, we can't adjust that for you because the tire was rotated from one side of the car to the other, and it got going in the opposite direction, and that broke the belt. Well, come to find out, when the tire companies changed their mind about cross-rotating, this particular tire company issued a statement saying that you could always cross-rotate their tires since day one.
Kind of like the government.
Yeah, and if you were new to the business and didn't remember the problems that you'd had way back when they were telling you that it was from cross-rotation, you probably would go along with it. But I don't, and I don't sell the tires anymore either.
Well, Mike, that's certainly been interesting. Thanks again, and I think we'll have to have you back. We're out of time once again. We keep running late on these programs.
Well, it's good to see you, George, and next time you need your tires rotated, come on in.
I think I will. Thanks again, Mike. Hey, we'll be back with more Prime Time after this. Stay with us.
Did you ever hear the story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde? There was this fellow who experimented by taking dangerous chemicals into his system. His perilous venture caused him to change into something horrible and frightening. He became a creature even his own mother couldn't recognize. Don't wait until a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde shows up in your house. Get help now from the people at Habilitat, a place of change.
We're back.
And what could be better than the entertainers and On the Road Again?
On the road again. Oh, I just can't wait to get on the road again. Because my love is making music with my friends. Oh, I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Oh, I'm going places that I've never been. And seeing things that I may never see again. Oh, I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. Like a band of gypsies, we go down the highway. We're the best of friends. Insisting that we'll keep turning our way. What our way is on the road again. Oh, I just can't wait to get on the road again. Because my love is making music with my friends. Oh, I can't wait to get on the road again. Play John. On the run again, like a band of gypsies, we go down the highway. We're the best of friends, who insisting that we'll keep turning our way. When our way is on the road again. Oh, I just can't wait to get on the road again. Because my love is making music with my friends. Oh, I can't wait to get on the road again. No, baby, I can't wait to get on the road again. No, baby, I can't wait to get on the road again.
Yes, that was the entertainers and On the Road Again. And hey, Mark, we're done with another
Another one
Prime
in the
Time.
can.
In the can, as we say in the industry, for all you folks at home. But I'd like to thank all our guests, that great band Center Stage,
The staff of the Mystic Marine Life Aquarium,
our Primetime Tire expert Mike Chuddy,
and the entertainers.
and thank you for watching. Do join us again next time on Primetime. Good night, everybody.
know, Piggy, everybody's trying to save energy. What can we do?
Don't waste electricity.
You can make a difference. Write National Wildlife Federation, Washington, D.C. 20036.
Way back in 1988, when I was young, the American Cancer Society taught me that a low-fat, high-fiber diet could reduce the risk of cancer. I gave up some of my vices, didn't drink too much, ate my vegetables, especially those rich in vitamins A and C, and every bite was delicious. Today, I'm 82 and still having a blast.
Ready for warp speed, Commander.
Execute.
The American Cancer Society knows eating right can reduce the risk of cancer.